Good evening, everyone. Another Tuesday night's thoughts, some reflections on life, and just to say a huge welcome to you if you're watching live or watching catch up, as I know some people are, or you're watching silently. Just to say a huge welcome. I'm going to assume that I am doing well, and once I get my nod from my sound engineer, I'm good to go. So yeah, we're looking at finding courage to remain in toxic work environments. So sometimes we want to leave, but there might be reasons why we can't, and I'll be looking at that this evening. Thank you, sound engineer. If you can look on YouTube as well, that'd be fantastic. So yeah, we're good to go. So yeah, tonight we're looking at finding courage to remain in toxic work environments. Good evening, Sonia, and anyone else who's a regular but quiet. Now let me just share this. On December 2022, I ended a series, some of you may remember, I ended a series of developing mental fitness, and I had to look hard at the views. It was 2.3 thousand views. Now, I don't think for 1 minute, that's on Facebook alone, I don't think for 1 minute everybody watched from start to finish, but I just want to say a huge thank you for those who either come out regularly or you're scrolling and you find bits. Somebody mentioned on Sunday that the particular person was going through a very difficult time at work when I was doing the betrayal series, and particular one that she watched found it really helpful to kind of move on. She's not a regular, but she was able to get something to move on. So that's fantastic. So we're looking at finding courage to remain in toxic work environments. My name is Delroy Hall. I'm the owner of Del West Consultancy, and I've been involved in leadership and development for 30 years. I'm a counsellor and trainer. So this is who I am. Welcome to the regulars, and also welcome to new people as well, and those who've seen and not seen. So I just want to show how I'm defining toxic work environments. I think it's really important. Let's see if it's there. Yep. So I'm looking at this evening, the toxic work environment, and then we'll be looking at some recent research, and then we'll look at some of the consequences of toxic research, and then really, as our session looks at today, finding courage. What do we do to remain in these kind of workplaces? So you can read, let me see if I can, let's see if I can put that one there. Yeah, toxic work environment is one where negative, antagonistic, or bullying behavior is baked into the very culture. It is a toxic work environment. Employees are stressed, communication is limited, blame culture is rife, and people are rewarded tacitly or explicitly for unethical, harmful, or nasty attitudes and action. And that's the reference there. There's a cruel environment to be in. And the thought I would like to really share with us really is how we navigate, how we navigate these choppy, often turbulent waters of the toxic environment. It's a culture, it's cultivated, it's propagated, and I may say propagated by equally toxic people. Toxic environments just don't happen. They are created, they are propagated, they're presided over, they're maintained by the individuals quite often, either who start them, or then people get into a culture and they, good evening, Remy, great to see you as well. Give me a great boost this evening, along with my other people that watch as well. So there's many reasons why people stay, why you have to stay in the environment. Sometimes you're unable to leave. The workplace is where your skills are used. And to get a job similar, you'd have to travel far, and you don't want to leave the family. Sometimes the money might be good, but the environment is difficult. You've got a couple of kids, 2 or 3 years apart, off to uni. You're the main breadwinner, so sometimes you have to stay. And one of the things that I've learned only as a parent, and certainly reflecting on my own parents sacrifice a lot for kids. And as children, we don't always know the extent to which our parents sacrifice. So let me give you an example. Many of you know that I was an athlete many years ago, and when I was in big competitions, my father would come and watch me. Now, for that Caribbean man of that generation, it was an opportunity. You know, he kind of looked out of place, 3-piece suit. My dad was a dresser. He really was. He told me, he's passed away now. He said, Delroy, when you dress, you must dress to attract the girls. Now, that's what he told me. He used to tell me that often. So he would come to the competitions because the club put on a coach, and he would come with my mum and sister. And he did that not all the time, but major competitions he would always come to support me. Now, my dad died in 1987. I didn't realize, literally 2 years ago, maybe, when he didn't work on a Saturday, he didn't get paid. He was a builder's joiner, and he remained in that environment until he passed. But I also recognized, literally 2 years ago, when I was reflecting on him and what he'd done for me, when he didn't work on the Saturday, he lost the day's pay. So that's part of the sacrifice that my father gave. And I think lots of parents could sacrifice it for children. So it could be that you're there at a workplace, you really hate it, but you can't go anywhere else, not because you've got the choice, but there's a whole set of things attached to it. Recent study, 2021, 70%, good evening, Jeff, good to see you this evening. 70% of Brits in the working population have at some point in their working life worked in toxic environments. 70%. And some figures, when they did the research, 56% were likely to leave their jobs. 62% of women were more likely to leave than men. Men will kind of tough it out, stay it out. Interestingly enough, I shan't say whereabouts, but somebody I met recently, a Somalian academic who was working in a university down south, and she said, Delroy, I've noticed something really interesting. The women of color who left because of pressure at the university have gone to do new careers, start the business, so forth. The men who have left the academic world have gone to another university. And she's had conversations with them. It's about mortgage and all that type of stuff. But the women have gone on to do amazing things. This particular individual has gone on down south, has done amazingly well in terms of leaving the academic industry and doing something else. So some of the red flags to notice in a bullying culture, I don't need to tell you, but let me just remind us what some of the red flags of a bullying culture. Bullying, they said in this report, 46% saw bullying. Passive aggressive communication. Things were said in emails, and over the years I've heard some horrendous stuff said in emails. But when it's written in a way that it doesn't seems quite harmless. But when you read what's really going on, it's actually quite destructive. So 46% bullying, 46% passive aggressive communication, 37% cliquey behavior. So people form cliques, and if you're a new person, you cannot get in to be a part of the work environment. Favoritism, and that's 35%, and 35% gossip and rumoring. I want to talk a little bit about gossiping in a bit. But the worst trait is bullying. And, once upon a time, I thought bullying only occurred in the school playground. That's where you heard it on the news. But as I've gotten older and working with individuals, I realized that bullying happens in workplaces too. One of the things I did in my first interview with a student, I used to ask them about school life. One of the questions I always asked was, were you bullied? If the answer is yes, my next question was, and then I would say, how long were you bullied for? And if it goes on for a few weeks and a few months or a few years, which it does, then the question then I ask is, are you being bullied at university? Now, in all the years I've been there, no student ever said yes. The reason why I ask the question is this. If the person is bullied in their home or school, if they then go on to the next chapter of their life and they're bullied, there's a good chance when they go to the workplaces, on the relationships, they will be continually bullied. So at least if they've been bullied at university, they can report it, which is what they report it to the Students' Union and report it. That's really, really important. It's about breaking the cycle. So the HR News. Oh, right. Okay. Oh, Stephen, let me just share this. Thank you for sharing this. Find your Roy Talks. Now, I like that. Yes, I like Roy Talks. I like that. TED Talks format, very on point, relevant. I've experienced your talk. And yeah, thank you very much indeed, Stephen. Thank you for taking the time just to that short bit of information. Really, yes, and it it is important. You're right. It's absolutely important to speak out on issues. And it seems as though my next few series will be looking at things that are happening in the workplace, because they are common and they're rife, and we spend a lot of our times at work. And the conditions that some of us are experiencing need not be so. I'm not one of these individuals who's idealistic and have this world of idealism. We live in a real world. I understand that, but we can make it better for people if we're going to spend so much time at our work. As Simon Sinek says, good evening, Jenny. As Simon said it rightly, said we ask the wrong question when we say, what can we do to get the most out of people? He said, no, what leaders need to be saying, what environment can we create so people will want to give of their best? Because if we don't have the environment, what you have is compliance and not commitment. So, Stephen, thank you very much for what you've just shared. So the cost of toxicity. Let me just say this: if you work in a toxic environment, it can be contagious, and it's contagious by you wanting to fit in. And we have to exercise some resistance in terms of not being a part of this culture, the environment, even though we might be working there. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. It's not easy, but we can do it. So some of the costs of this toxic environment is demotivation, you know already, ambivalence, people are lethargic, we have compliance and not commitment, poor productivity, poor health in the broadest sense, physical health, poor, emotional health, psychological well-being, really poor. And if we're working in an environment that's toxic and we don't know how to decompress, our friends and family experience the fallout of that. So in this short talk, 30 minutes, there's not much I can do to kind of change that, but certainly today we're looking at what you can do to ensure that you survive or you navigate. And I'm using that word deliberately, and I'll say why in a moment. So there's two things we can do. We're going to look at one today, and we're going to look at another one next week. So sometimes you can't leave an organization. You have to remain. So there's two things. What can you do to navigate or develop resistance in such an organization? And secondly, which we'll look at next week, what can you do to bring about change? So if you have to be there, maybe you can't change the structure, but you can change the work environment for the people that you work with, more so if you're in a team leader or leadership position. So you can be an organization which is toxic, but you're running a department, you've got a team, and because you're a different type of leader, you're willing to take the flak from above, but also to shield and to develop your team. In fact, it's happened to a friend of mine who's got promoted. I won't genderize the person so you won't know, who really kind of empowered her team, and now the person has gone. I think I've just done it, even though I said I weren't going to. Anyway, really dangerous. I think it did. Anyway, you don't know a name. I'm not going to say that. But now that the person's gone, the team now recognizes what their leader was protecting them from. So we're going to be looking at what you can do. You need to be able to do something in terms of toxicity. Toxicity is negative energy that will affect your body, because toxicity is stress, and some of the consequences, of course, is poor sleep, anxiety, depression, poor diet, strange habits to kind of cope with the situation. It goes on and on and on. Yeah, good evening, Tina, and anyone else who's joining us this evening, either on YouTube or Facebook, or LinkedIn or Twitter. Welcome. I'm going to be on Instagram soon, but I'll say more about that in a bit. I've got an account, but it's another new thing to kind of get my head around and to work through. Anyway, I'm on it because I've got two young women in my life, my daughters, who kind of push me in that direction. So toxicity is negative emotion, it's negative energy, and we have to be careful that we don't get kind of caught up with it all. So how do we navigate this terrain? And I use the word navigate deliberately. This is why. The word navigate means to direct or manage or to plot a path. So we can't survive these environments by chance. We have to be strategic. We have to be thoughtful. We have to be intentional. If, for example, you're in an environment and you've got 5 years to stay there, and the environment is toxic, the leadership is not good, management is not brilliant, and you haven't got the choice, how are you going to survive and thrive in that environment? First thing, of course, I'd encourage everybody, think on paper. I've always said this, think on paper. We can have a lot of things in our head, but think on paper. And this is what I'll say. Do you have a support group, or do you have a supportive family and friends that you can talk to outside of work? That's really important. In fact, you may be able to collaborate with individuals, because I know over the years, when I've chatted to individuals, sometimes 2 or 3 individuals can get together and you form almost like an incognito group within that work structure, and you support each other during the particular time, during a particular type of leadership, and so forth. The other thing I really suggest that you do, and these are some suggestions, because listen, if you're working in a toxic environment, you must find ways to decompress. Yes, oh, I like this one, Tina. Yeah, it's worse on your own. It is. You need good scaffolding. You really do need good scaffolding, and the scaffolding is the people around you. Whoa! Now, if you're just here for the first time, I do invite questions and so forth. Obviously, when we start doing some stuff on Zoom, it'll be conversations and so forth. But at the minute, it's just through the chat facility, either on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube as well. So, question: the dynamics are different if you're not office-based. Yes, you're in a profession where you're not necessarily a team. Actually, will you be covered? Will you be covering what situation? Oh, now, the dynamics are different if you're not office-based. For example, you're in a profession where you're not necessarily a team, etc. Will you be covering work situations where you're not covered by the HR? Now, let me just say this. Now, I'm always on the lookout for new material. I'm creating a list, so that will be a new material. Yes, so thank you for that. So, yeah, because that's something important, isn't it? And also, even though we're working from home, there's toxic behavior that can happen online, where if you're leading a meeting, people turn the cameras off. There can be conversations going on behind, well, certainly in the chat box, privately, certainly on Zoom, you can do that. So I've certainly heard of people being marginalized and blanked or bullied even online. So yes, that is something to look at. Yeah, and the whole thing about HR policies, that's really interesting. Yeah, thank you for that. That's helpful. I had not been covering it, but now you've raised it, it's something to cover, certainly as we're now in this world of kind of hybrid working and working online. Now Tina just said, I used to have a phrase we would say so we knew it was getting. Oh yeah, that's right. You taught code. In fact, our parents taught code when we were young. They'd say things that went over our head, but over a while you kind of knew that they were talking to them. Nowadays, of course, I've known parents who said, you know, the kids are in the same room and they're texting. They're not texting their friends, they're texting each other, but they don't want parents to know what's going on. So we find ways of communicating. I'd like to think it's not because homes are toxic, that's what kids do. But yes, yeah, there's ways in which you communicate that you know that either time out or I need some support. Yeah, absolutely correct. So thank you for that, Jenny. So navigating, charting a plot, planning a pathway, something that you need to do to ensure that you survive and thrive. And as I said, it's not happening by chance. You have to be strategic about it. So find ways to unwind. And I'm not talking about soft drugs or alcohol. No, let me say just something on a serious note. We can use binge eating, alcohol, recreational drugs, illicit relationships to deal with levels of stress. The problem is, if there's any relief, and now I'm not promoting this, but I'm just saying, if there's any relief, it is temporarily. And then what you're dealing with is not just the toxicity of the workplace, now you're dealing with addiction. And that's what we don't want. We want to move away and moving into the direction of healthy ways of dealing with things. Because remember, If you're in a toxic environment for 8 hours of the day, your body is under stress for 8 hours. So find ways to unwind, really important. How's that? Hobbies. I think I may have mentioned a few weeks ago, a friend of mine it wasn't so much a toxic situation, but the job she was dealing with mental health work, and it was really pressurizing. And she said to me one day, Delroy, I need to find something that's going to take me out of the stress of this. And it was when I left Leicester, when I went back to see her, she started astronomy and she absolutely loved it. It was away from the stresses of the mental health, even though she loved doing the work, but it was really, really stressful. So find ways of unwinding, new hobbies. Some people, well, certainly for me, what helps me to unwind is I write. I'm not a poet, but some people, when they're stressed, some people start writing poetry. I remember talking to somebody, I met him in Brighton. I've known him for years, and he won quite a few competitions in poetry and so forth. So I said to him, what made you start writing poetry? He said, well, I was in a particular situation. Things weren't making any sense, but the writing did. So writing helped him to de-stress, to make some sense of what was happening. And then from that, he won awards and so forth. So find a new hobby, start writing, even artwork, or even listen to music, or even start music. You need to find things to decompress, to de-stress when you leave. Music, as I said before, exercise, running, swimming. Some of you kind of balk at the idea of open water swimming, but I tell you, I can see the attraction of open water swimming, especially in the summer, when you've got confidence of the water and it's a beautiful day. The water's quite warm, you're in nature, and I don't mean wild swimming, I mean where it's an organized swim, so there's spotters in the water. That is, it's organized swim, there's other capable swimmers that will help you. Spotters are people in small boats. If you get into trouble, you're not there on your own. It's properly geared up. In most cities, they have these open water facilities. Really, really good. One of the things you can do is to develop a positive mental attitude. There's lots of stuff around mindfulness now, meditation. Remember, as I said before, toxicity equals stress. And one of the things I want to focus on, and some of you may be thinking, Delroy, what? No, you can't be doing this. One of the things that we underestimate, Tina said, no, sir. No, she ain't swimming in no cold water. In fact, if you do swim in cold water, it's actually very good for you. There's huge health benefits. I understand that if you swim in cold, in terms of when I say cold, I mean at a reasonable temperature, maybe between, say, I would say between maybe 14, 15, 16, 17 degrees, that the lasting effect, if you swim in the water maybe for an hour, the lasting effects is up to a week in terms of the health benefits, in terms of your body, and develops your immune system and so forth. You can do a lot of work on it, because I think I started open water swimming last year. I ain't doing the cold water stuff in the winter. There's some people that do, but I'm certainly not doing it. But it's something that's really important, and I'd encourage you to do it if you can swim. In fact, a friend of mine who, just to say, a friend of mine, she is 60 later on this year, and she started swimming, and she's actually enjoying it. And she's not 60 yet, but she just started swimming. This is not open water swimming, this is in the pool. And she says she could swim of sorts, but never seriously and all the rest of it. She wanted to improve her stroke, and it's years since she's been in the water, and she had her first session last week, and all good play to her, all good play to her. So one of the things I want to really talk about, which is really important, your body's under stress, you need to find ways of decompressing. One of the ways that's underestimated is stillness, being still, the effects of stillness and our well-being. Learning to be still reduces stress, it improves sleep. It can be a source of inspiration, i.e. that whilst you're still, new ideas can come. Either how am I going to navigate this wretched place I'm working, or a project that you might be on. Being still with all the stuff that's going on, all the chaos that's going on, some excellent ideas can come, not necessarily when you're around the desk or around your board or your pad, but when you're away from it, just being silent, being still. So lots of scientific research on stillness and the effect on our body. It's stillness and breathing. Breathing, so when we're still and deep breathing, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the nervous system that's activated for us to be quiet and restful. Remember, your body's tense, it's tight, it's taut, it's under stress, under pressure. So what the stillness does, and the deep breathing, it enables our body to relax and recover even in a stressful situation. Breathe deeply and slowly. So what the parasympathetic nervous system does, it slows down the heartbeat. Breathing, so it slows down the heartbeat. So we can practice stillness when you need it. If you can't practice stillness, being with your thoughts, consider some soft music in the background. And I would say soft music in the background without lyrics, just some gentle music in the background. Some people have a real difficulty being with their thoughts, but soft music in the background, listening to it very, very gently, can be really, really helpful in just bringing our system down when we're in a very, very, very difficult situation. There's no right way, but it's what works for you that relaxes you. I think I might have mentioned last week, there's a colleague of mine who works in a really difficult, no, I think it was in a article that I wrote, really kind of tense situation. And he says, he goes walking pretty much most nights. He said, Delroy, even if it's chucking down a rain, I go out. It's a way that I distress. And I think I put in the article that avid walkers will say there's no such thing as bad weather, it's just inadequate clothing. So regardless of the weather, he goes out. I shan't use the language that he used, but he said when it's chucking it down with rain, he said I still go out with my partner just to get out, to de-stress, and then come back in, and he's good to go. So one of the things, other thing we can do to relax is to journal, as something I do, or to read. That's really important. One of the things I wanted to say, mentioned earlier on about gossiping, do not get embroiled in gossiping or spreading rumors. I've written something here that what it does, do not fit in. That gossiping, it, for want of better, it knackers your spirit and your emotions and your energy. And for those of us who believe, it knackers your soul. Do not be embroiled in it. Not at all. If people ask if you comment, no comment. Just do not get involved in the toxic culture that's in the workplace. That's how you'll survive, by not being part of the culture. You're there to do your work. When you get home when you finish at 5 o'clock, you go home and you kind of decompress. So there's somebody by the name of what's his name now? Jack Cryer. He talks about 7 decisive reasons why stillness is a superpower. And I won't go into great detail with all of them, but if you want the link, I can certainly send it to you. So 7 decisive reasons why stillness is a superpower. If you Google that, it'll come up anyway. 7 decisive reasons why being still is a superpower. Benefits. So when you've been still, there's less stress. You can handle difficult situations more easily. What's to say? Oh, hang on, what's to say? Yes, Tina, yeah, yes, in terms of gossiping, yeah, you're then adding to the next environment. I've get out phrases so you don't get involved. Yeah, thank you. You just reminded me of something. Not that the environment was toxic, but I remember having to lead meetings many, many years ago, gosh, 30 years ago. And there was always one individual who, I don't know what was up with him. Never did know what was up with him. And I knew the first 10, 15 minutes of the meeting, he just went on one. And what I did, because I can give, certainly then I could give as good as I get. I really can. But I was in a leadership position. I realized you can't do that if you're in a leadership position. So in the end, how I managed it, I imagined him in me in the meeting, and he called me all the names of the son, and I didn't retaliate. So that's how I prepared myself. I know I was going to go into a meeting with him. I weren't going to change him. So I'm going to change myself. How did I do that? I mentally and psychologically prepared myself. So when I was in the meeting with him, I didn't bite to anything that he said, and I responded accordingly. And that's one of the ways sometimes you can manage difficult situations. But I think, as Tina rightly said, have some get out phrases so you don't, so you're not involved. I think I wrote in the article about a friend of mine who now passed away. And she was known for this. If somebody left the office and the office staff started talking about them, and when they moved back, she'd say, "Do you realize when you're out they were talking about you?" Yeah, she did it more than once. But yeah, that was at her funeral, and that was part of the eulogy, that she would let the person know, in your absence, people were talking about you. Now that takes some serious courage. I'm not too sure if I could do that, but something that she did. And what that would do over a very short period of time, that would start breaking the culture of gossiping. Certainly when she was around, they wouldn't do it. So Tom and I, they wouldn't do it when she was around. Oh my gosh! Oh, Jeff says, "Gosh, I do that." Absolutely, absolutely. I must confess, I don't think. I've never done it. But hey, listen, my hat off to you for doing it, because that takes some courage. It really does take some courage. So the whole thing around the 7 decisive reasons why stillness is a superpower. Benefits are less stress. You you respect your body. You give your body an opportunity to recover. You handle tough situations more effectively. When you're still, you're then able to hear yourself. And sometimes we don't hear ourselves because we're too busy. But when we're still, we hear those words of intuition, those words of wisdom that come from within us, in terms of either what we need to do, how we're to act, the strategy that we need to kind of move forward. You're able to hear yourself. Being still brings clarity. It also increases our strength. And of course, it maintains good mental and physical health. But also what stillness does, it increases creativity, gives us clarity. It's amazing what stillness can do. So how we do that, you find a time to be still. It could be before, if you drive home, before you meet the family, you spend 10, 15 minutes in the car, engine off, your phone off, the radio off. That could be a space, or it could be in the morning. I remembered when we were on lockdown, and I used to say to folks, listen, before you open your laptop, don't turn up to the laptop in your pajamas. Get a shower, have a breakfast, put on your makeup. If you're a woman, put your wig on. Whatever you do your nails. And before you open your laptop, have a few minutes of quiet. And then you're ready for the day. Then you're ready to go. So that's really important. So find a place, schedule a time, either first thing in the morning, or when the kids, if you've got a household that's busy, last thing at night, or in the car. There's a family I know that when the family wanted to talk privately, the husband and wife would go into the car, which was on the drive, and they would sit, and the kids knew, they would sit in the car for 2 or 3 hours just talking. And the kids grew up knowing, if mum and dad are in the car, they want to talk. They want space away from us, and they want to talk. So you schedule a time to be silent. Find a place, and being still is not praying, problem solving, or planning. It's just being still. You do nothing. And there's lots of research now on doing nothing, and in those spaces is where we're creative, where our bodies are energized, and so forth. So there's things that we can do. Maybe not be able to change the system, but certainly there's things we can do to ensure that the toxic environment that we're in, we can manage ourselves. We navigate. We have to be intentional. It's not going to happen by chance. You may not get the support from your manager. You may not get support from your boss above if you're in a leadership position. You may not get the support from HR. So what will you do in terms of managing yourself? Certainly find ways of de-stressing or decompressing when you leave work. And one thing of all things, do not join up in office gossip or rumoring, because it just mashes up your spirit, your energy, but not only that, but also your integrity. Because if you're a part of it, and then you become a part of that culture, people then can point the finger at you and say, well, look, you're a part of this and you're involved in it like the rest of us. Hey, listen, this was finding courage to remain in toxic work environment. It's not easy, but it is to remain in there with integrity, with dignity, being able to move forward and go from strength to strength. So listen, enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your week. Next week, we're going to look at what we can do to change the situation or change your team. You might not be able to change the culture, but let's have a look and see what we can do if we decide this is where I'm going to have to remain for the next 5 years. I wish you well. If you need to DM me, please do, and I'll try my best to respond. I think I pretty much do respond to most individuals when they contact me. And please, if you find this helpful, tell your friends, share. Those of you on Facebook, oh yeah, good evening, Carol. Yeah, on Facebook, wherever, please share it with your friends, subscribe, all that type of stuff. But please share if you know that people are going through a tough time, difficult work situations, and let's see what we can do. Brilliant. Yes, I am on Insta, yes, but not on this, not on Dr. Delroy Hall. It's on Delroy Wesley Hall at the moment. I made a mistake when setting it up, so I need to sort it out. But I need my 2 young daughters to help me. I'm old fogey now, you know, so I need the information and the assistance from young people. Anyway, thank you. Take care of yourselves. Wish you well. All the best. Take care. Bye-bye. And thank you for being here this evening.